Thanks very much for joining us tonight. It's a great way for us to connect ahead of the season for all grades, for referees, coaches, players, managers alike, and just have an opportunity to discuss our 2021 game priorities, which have come down from New Zealand Rugby. They are similar to what we had last year, and we'll go over them in depth. So just a quick outline for the night is I'll be taking us through our 2021 game priorities. We'll have a bit of a Q&A throughout and then afterwards as well for those. I'll just bring in a couple of World Rugby law updates or just clarify a couple of things around law, and then we'll be done no later than 8 o'clock tonight, probably sooner. What we will do is, you would have seen on the initial slide just a few things around Teams. So if you can keep your microphone on mute, that would be outstanding. Just unless you are specifically intending to speak and address everyone, it just does save a bit of background noise and does make it for people to hear. So I will keep on popping you guys back on mute if need be. Now, like I said, like I've mentioned here as well, we'll be showing a presentation. It does have a couple of videos in it, which I will play from start to finish. I know that they will probably skip or lag for most people. However, the presentation is available for anyone to see, so don't problem if you're not able to see them properly. I just want to say, David, your microphone keeps on unmuting. So I'm not too sure if it's something you're pressing there, but I will just mute you again. That's all right. Cool. Well, good. Right, we'll get underway. I'll just change screens. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Cam Russell. I'm our referees manager here at Community Rugby, and we have a number of referees on the call tonight, as well as some coaches I can see as well. So welcome and thank you for all joining us tonight. Okay. Okay, so for those of you who were familiar with our game focus areas for 2020, these are very similar. They've just been added to and tweaked in different ways. So we're just looking at our 5 key areas here with our game priorities, and we'll break each one down specifically. So our first one relates to our breakdown in our tackle ruck area. So the law around that and what our parameters are for dealing with that. Again, this presentation is written mostly from a referee's perspective. The reason that we have our coaches invited and other stakeholders invited is so that ultimately our players and our coaches are the ones that are directly affected by that. So the better understanding, the better protection we can create, then hopefully the better it will be for the game. So our second one is space. So if you're not clearly onside, then you are offside, and that's how we'll manage space in our game. Keeping the game moving, and that's through referring to the law and encouraging positive play. So not just behaviour, but also the way in which we play the game as well. So also set pieces as well. Again, not wasting large amounts of game time with our set pieces, setting up expectations and parameters for that. And then respect, of course, for our match officials and everyone involved in the game. Again, that the standards we set around those two. Okay. So what we'll do, guys, is we'll launch into each one, and after each key area, I will take an opportunity at that time just to cover off any burning questions that there might be. And then we'll move to the one after that. Okay, so we'll start with our tackle breakdown area. So this is to do with our ball carriers. We're looking at one dynamic movement. You would have heard that, if you've been watching Super Rugby, you would have heard this mentioned a few times. Justin Marshall loves to bang on about this, but the dynamic movement being one movement to which they can place or pass the ball, basically move their body. The key area for this is that movement cannot be forward. So they can't promote or present themselves forward or crawl forward once they've hit the ground. So it can be a movement that's sideways or twisting or backwards in order to present that ball, but they can't propel themselves forward. You'll notice these little red triggers in here as well. So referees definitely take note of this. This is what can trigger you in to looking for this on the field. Okay, so particularly at times when we have when the ball carrier is isolated, any of those moments when they want to buy time or get away from any jackler or arriving player trying to steal the ball. Okay, back. I will just play this video, and again, like I said, it will skip or lag. I'm only going to play it once. If you'd like to review it, you can review it in the presentation in your own time, which I will share the link for. We'll just make note, not all of these are the correct decisions. So don't focus on the decisions, focus on the actions of what's happening from the player on the ground. Cool. So again, not all correct decisions. So let's make sure we stay away from the focusing on what the actual decision was. But when you are rewatching those videos in your own time, really just focus on that yellow text and what it shows for the movement for each person or the particular area. Okay, so that's for our ball carriers. Once the tackle is complete, we are looking at the tacklers. That is then the #1 priority. So once we do have a tackle, referees absolutely focus on that tackler and their actions from there. Okay, so we are looking for the best place for tacklers to get out of the way is east to west. So that's towards the touch lines. Okay, so not north south, not towards the goal lines. East west. That gets them out of the way of where arriving players are coming in. We're not penalising them if they don't roll east to west, but however, if they don't roll east to west and they go out somewhere else, then they are putting themselves in danger of being penalised if they interfere with play. Okay. So if they are falling between where that ball is and where the arriving halfback is coming in, then it's on them 100% to get out of the way immediately. They can't impede the release of the ball coming out for the line. Okay, so again, tackler who might fall and land on the wrong side. Yep, the argument might be, well, he's landed on the wrong side. You can't do much about it. Well, in essence, that he is the one that made the tackle. He's the one that ended up there. Sorry, he or she is the one that ended up there. They are the one that have to get out of there. Okay, so no tolerance if they do end up on that wrong side. They got to get out without impeding play. Okay, and where it says to reward a jackler, the tackler must not impede the clean out. What we're meaning by that is that if that tackler goes to ground, they cannot slow down or act as a speed bump, I guess, for any supporting players coming in to stop the ball being stolen. Okay, so that tackler can't help his own teammate who's trying to steal the ball by slowing down. All it takes is to slow someone down by about a half second, and then that gives that half second for that jackler, for that opposition person to get over the ball. Okay, so referees dealing with the tackler is #1 priority. Okay, triggers for that. Obviously, if that speed of the ball is compromised, that's a big trigger for us. Why is that speed of the ball compromised? Is the tackler in the way? Are they not rolling? Deal with it, and that's the penalty. That's the one we need to get right first. Okay. Okay. Third part of our breakdown and tackle ruck area are the assist tacklers. So these are the ones that help out with the tackle. They assist that tackle being made, but they don't necessarily go to ground. So they are not tacklers. Okay, if they don't go to ground, they help make the tackle, but they don't go to ground themselves. Then they are tackle assists. They're assist tacklers. Okay, so what we're looking for those players is clear release and clear separation. So quite often these are the players that are then going to jackal or going to steal the ball. We need to see that clear release and clear separation for them to be able to then make that action to go for the ball. Okay, so whatever it looks like, they don't need to wave their arms way up in the air. If they do, well, it's clearly showing clear release. But however they do show that, it's got to be clear for us. Okay. So notice that we are actually going through these, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I didn't actually show that video in the previous one. I will just show it now. Okay. So our ball carrier obviously is the first one. Our next priority are the tacklers. So that's once the tackles happen, that's our main priority. So I'll jump back a little bit. Sorry, I just realized I didn't show the video for our tacklers. So I will just show those tacklers rolling out of the way. Well, there's intentionally no sound, by the way. So I've got to get out of the way, east to west, not lying over, killing the ball. Oh, that's, yeah, again, one clear example. I don't think you need a clearer example than that. All right, and our tackle assist. So this is looking for that clear release and clear separation. So we'll just have a quick look at for clear release and clear separation from the assist tacklers. That's the yellow player, must show clear release. That's clear release. Must be coaching more than a month or two. Cool. Okay. All right. The jackler. So with these previous with the previous two, so with our tackler rolling and with our assist tacklers clear releasing, that's usually when there's less bodies in the way. So these are usually the easier calls to make as referees. Okay, so if we're going to get those calls right, we absolutely need to get those first two right. Okay, focus on that tackler rolling and those assist tacklers releasing. So the jackler, this is when more bodies are arriving, and all of a sudden the picture starts getting a wee bit busier. Okay, so the jackler, this is the arriving player to come and steal the ball. So the team not in possession. So for this player to be rewarded, for them to be able to get the ball, okay, they must arrive first. So they must be the first one at that breakdown, on their feet, that is. And they must be balanced. Okay, so balance being supporting their own weight. They cannot be using the ground, and they cannot be completely leaning on something else to hold themselves up with their hands. All their weight is on their feet. So if you took away what their hands were on, they should still be able to stay on their feet. But if you took away what their hands are on and they would fall over, they're not supporting their weight. Okay. Now it does show that they must have a clear lift of the ball. Of course, if the person's holding very, very, very tightly and they are physically unable to show a clear lift, then read into that as you will. But basically, if they are able to show that they can clearly lift the ball, then that in itself is proof that they are supporting their weight, because it would be very, very hard if you were using your arms and hands, or the ball, sorry, to support your weight. You would struggle to be able to pick it up with it and stay on your feet at the same time. Okay. So if they do lose their feet, or if they don't win the ball on that very first attempt that they have, then that's their chance gone. Okay, so they must leave the ball alone at that point. They cannot have another crack at it, because once they've lost their feet, another player would have arrived. All of a sudden, we don't have a tackle anymore. We have a ruck, and we all know there's no hands allowed in the ruck. Okay. Now, where it says bouncing past the ball with hands and onto the ground, actually no, I'll just show that video. Sorry, just where it talks about being balanced. So here we go. Hang on. Oh, sorry, this is the previous one. Apologies. Sorry about that one. This one doesn't want to play full screen. I know you probably can't see that too well on your screen, so I'll just carry on while that's playing in the background as well. Cool. So bouncing past the ball. So we're not looking so looking at players who bounce past the ball. They put their hands on the ground, past the player, past the player, past the ball. They cannot then grab on the way back to standing up. Okay, so if they're leaning all the way over the top of the player on the ground, they're off their feet because they're using the ground to support their weight. They need to reset themselves. And that means come back in from behind the hindmost foot or reset themselves back on their feet again before they have a go at the ball. Okay, so again, this is not something I can show you right now. Unfortunately, this video is not playing full screen. The rest of them are, but this one isn't. So do have a look in your own time, and I will share that link for a good example. Yeah, but those players cannot grab that ball on the way back to standing up. They need to stand up first, support their weight, show that they are, and then if they are still onside and there's no one else there, they can then have a go at the ball. Okay. What we're looking for as referees is we want to protect this player from getting clean from dangerous hits. So this is a safety aspect. If that jackler does get there, they win that race. They are strong on the ball. They are supporting their weight. They are trying to lift that ball, and it's not coming straight away. That's the penalty right there. Blow it. Reason being, if they're still trying to tug that ball out and it's being held in illegally and you're playing advantage, what's going to happen to that player? They're then absolutely prone, probably with their head down, to getting hit very hard by someone trying to clean them out. Okay, so they're trying to win that ball. If they're allowed to, blow that penalty early, and that is a massive safety aspect, which is why this area is also a focus area for not just New Zealand rugby, but for world rugby as well. Okay, and with our tackle breakdown focus areas, we're now looking at our arriving players. Okay, so this is now players arriving into what would be then a ruck as they get there. We are looking at our gate. So our gate, if we're not 100% clued up on what our gate looks like, I will, when I send this video out, I will also share a great little diagram and illustration as to what represents a gate and how it can be identified. I'm not going to go through that at the moment because we could talk about that for a while. But long story short, the gate is the width of the body of the participants of that ruck. So it's only as wide or as narrow as the bodies are laying on the ground or as that ruck is. Okay, so that's why players tend to elongate themselves, is it creates a very, very narrow gate. They elongate themselves north to south or towards the goal lines. Rather, if they lie crossways towards the touch lines, then they have a very wide gate. So that's part of the reasoning there. So we are looking for players to come in through the gate from their side of the ball. Okay, the trigger for this, or something to look for this, look at the back sides and the spine position of those players coming in. If their backsides are facing between, sort of pointing between their own corner flags, so back towards their own goal line, then they're probably coming through the gate. They're coming in nice and straight. If those backsides are facing out towards the touch lines, then chances are that they are coming in on the angle, or they're coming in ahead of their last feet or from the side. Okay, so definitely looking away for that, the players coming in from the side. You'll see quite a bit last year and in previous Super Rugby years where there was a lot of cleaning out past the ball, taking players in it who were past the ball. Seeing that a lot less now that these game priorities have been in place for about a year or so, down from 30-something penalties to only about 20 odd now. So it's heading in the right direction for Super Rugby, and I'm sure it will head the right direction for our community game as well. Drive, not dive. So what this means is exactly what it sounds like. We are looking for players to drive opposition off the ball, not dive at them. So the law states that when you enter a ruck or a breakdown, you must bind to someone. You must bind to either a teammate if you got one of them in front of you, or an opposition player if you got no teammates in front of you. Binding is with the arm. Okay. So we're looking to bind and drive. Grab a player, drive them off the ball. Okay. Not diving. Diving is basically go to tackle their legs, their ankles, their shins, or whatever it might be. Two things wrong with that. One, it's dangerous. There's a lot of injuries, a lot of danger associated with that. Secondly, is it's illegal. You are the only way that the only position you're going to end up there is off your feet. So you must do everything in your power to stay on your feet. If you're diving at someone's legs or someone's feet, someone's ankles, you're going to ground. And so it's also a negative play around that breakdown. Okay, so just remembering when we're looking at that drive, not dive, and that's the language, particularly as referees, we can use as well on the field when we're talking about that decision with the players. Okay. Going off feet to support a teammate. So if we have arriving players coming in and their teammate has the ball, they must stay on their feet. Again, this is do everything in their power to stay on their feet and hold their balance, hold their weight. Okay. If they have gone off their feet, they must again roll out of the way, get out of the way, reload. So that's come around and back in through the gate again. If they want to be part of that ruck again. So if they do go off their feet, it's okay, so long as they don't have an impact on play, and then they get out of the way again. Okay. But that material impact is important. You're not going to penalise every single person who ends up off their feet. You wouldn't have a game otherwise. But just do think about, this person's gone off their feet. What is the impact on the game? Have they got out of the way? Sweet, let's carry on. Or no, okay, penalty. Okay. And again, sealing. So you hear the term sealing quite often, particularly when teams are under pressure or trying to kill the game off, or particularly in the later stages of the game. A team has a ball, they might have a slim lead, and they'll probably just seal every single breakdown, where they'll go to ground and then they'll put 2 or 3 players over the top of that ball, but they'll be leaning on the ground past the ball carrier. So again, just people staying on their feet. On feet means only your feet are supporting you. You're not using anything else. And this relates to the dive not drive mentality, but tackling the jackler's legs is dangerous play. So it might sound counterintuitive, like, oh well, you tackle the legs. Yeah, you do tackle the legs, but a jackler is part of the ruck. So if you're happening to tackle their legs, then there's probably no chance you can stay on your feet. So again, drive not dive. Don't tackle the legs. Don't aim for the legs. It is dangerous. Okay. Again, those triggers for the referees. So looking for those players entering from behind the ball and making contact with the torso and driving. Okay, not just diving at the legs. There we go. Straight in from the side of the breakdown. Yeah, so Crusader's probably a bit unlucky on that, particularly that last one. The Hurricanes players coming straight past the ball on the side. And this one may not play full screen again. So I know it will. Because the ceiling, one where there's no way they are. And another ceiling one. The only position they're going is straight to ground. And we have another ceiling off as well. So they knew they're under pressure. They just go straight to ground. There's no way that the other players can get in to get the ball. Another trigger, another thing to look at for referees is where are the players' shoulders in comparison to their hips. If they're below their hips, chances are they're not supporting their weight. Very difficult to support your weight when your shoulders are below your hips. Okay. All right. Before we carry on, so just thinking about our 5 main points. This is the biggest part of the evening, by the way, was the breakdown. So before we carry on, just wanted to open up, were there any questions, clarifications that that anyone had. You will need to, if you do want to speak, you'll need to unmute yourself. And if we have multiple people talking, then I might just try and do hands up. Nothing in the chat. No, oh, was that clear? Good, great.
Yeah, Graham here.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, just regarding staying on your feet, that at the breakdown, that also includes if you're resting your knees on an opposition player, that's off your feet?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yep, so you're just using your feet really to support your weight. Now, probably the only consideration then that I'll just bring up as well there, Graham, is bracing. So your hands. So players can, if they're in a strong position, they can brace onto the player on the ground with their hands, so long as they're not supporting their weight there. So they might there just to use it for steadiness or just to get ready to go again. But if the key test is if they took their hands away off that player, are they going to stay on their feet or not? Yeah. So knees definitely not, because you're putting that weight on the knees. So that's a good point. But if they are clearly in nice low position and they're supporting their weight on their feet, they might just be holding their hands against their own player, just to steady themselves, but not lean on them. And that's a consideration that we have to take into account. Like if you took that player away, would they fall over? Yes or no? And does it have an effect on play? That's the other thing. Cool. Okay. Good question. Anything else before I move to our next focus area? Okay, if something does come to mind, pop it in the chat, or we'll just have a quick mop-up Q&A at the end as well. Okay, our next focus area is space. This one is relatively simple, but we will just talk about it, the different areas of it as well. So, firstly is the in front of kick. Hopefully you would have noticed a few more penalties coming out for this, particularly at Super Rugby this year as well. So this is about players who are in front of a kicker. Okay, so it's on them to not move forward until put onside. I don't have the stats in front of me, but there was a bit of research when they were doing all of these priorities. And there is a significant number of meters, like how particularly depending on how far forward you are of the kicker and how many seconds it is before that onside player gets past you. You can actually make up or cut down a whole lot of space for the ball carrier. So again, referees shouldn't be having to manage it and keep on yelling at players. No, stop, you stop, no, you stop as well. No, all of you stop, what's going on? Okay, so bear that in mind, referees. Obviously use your management, use your voice on the field. Say, yeah, stop in front there. Give them a fair warning. If they stop straight away, great. If they take a couple of steps and they stop straight away, great. Yeah, but if they are carrying on, and if you have told them, or if they do make significant distance, then penalise. Okay, if they are in front of the kicker. If you are lucky enough to have ARs running for you as well, then make sure that between the three of you, you've identified who it is that's looking out for these players. So particularly at Premier Rugby, looking out who's looking at the players who are in front and who's calling that through. Okay, so that player must wait until they are put onside. They can be put onside in a number of ways. This player decided not to. They decided to keep on jogging a little bit and then carry on. And then they're the ones that makes the tackle. So they have a direct impact on play as well. Oh, sorry, attempted to charge down. Okay, so they're all still in front and they still haven't been put onside yet. So it might look like not much, but if that person had to wait and then make it up, it still has a big impact on play later. There could have been a gap in midfield. So referees, particularly when you're out there by yourself, just having a quick look left, right. Once that kick is made, who's in front, who have I got to look at? Maybe one quick call out at them. That's your trigger. Okay. This one is the most common onside area, and that's at our tackle and our ruck area. Okay, so once we have offside lines at a tackle, or once that first player has arrived, or once we have a ruck, then we need players to be clearly onside. So this is really where the clearly onside terminology comes into it. Okay, so if you're not clearly showing that you are behind the offside line, then you put yourself at risk at being penalised. And coaches, this is the message to get to the players. Just take that half step, show the referee, show the assistant referees if they're there, that your team is clearly onside and behind that offside line. Now, particularly at the try line is an area where we need to be onside, and that includes hands. So even though feet might be behind the offside line, the players can't be leaning forward with their hands on the ground past the offside line. Okay, for one, they're off their feet, but basically they have part of their body which then has an impact on play in front of the offside line. So be particularly tight on that as well. Okay. Now, for referees, we're looking at triggers obviously around the goal line for that, but also teams are under pressure. Obviously, you're under pressure at the goal line. So if teams be pushed back, then the hands in front, clearly in front of the last feet. And then a player standing in front of the last. And every single one of those on the ball carrier close to the line, which could have been a try. Cool. So again, that's pushing the offside line. It's right on it, and we clearly show the. Cool. Our last one for space and offsides is at the set piece. So we're looking at scrums and lineouts. Again, so obviously at scrums being 5 metres back. Once that ball has been clearly won, by the halfback, then they can move forward. And they do have to stay 5 metres back behind the scrum, even if it's moving. So as that scrum moves, that offside line moves as well. It just doesn't go behind the goal line. And then at lineouts, until that lineout is over. So once either the ensuing maul or ruck or anything has passed the mark of touch or goes inside the 5 or outside the 15. So once that lineout is over, then that's when the backs can come up. They can come up early if they know that ball is going to cross the 15-metre line. So if it's a long throw in and goes across the 15s, they can come up, shoot up straight away as soon as it's thrown. But if it doesn't get there, then they have to retreat. Now you would have noticed probably in Super Rugby referees holding their arms out both ways to hold the players there. Again, that is something that you could do if you choose to. It's probably a good management thing to do. Again, referees, you find your own style with that. But again, if you have assistant referees, make sure that you're communicating clearly and you put someone in charge of each of those offside lines. Okay. It says here, so as well for a trigger for the lineout. So if there's a maul that's fallen from it, it says here that the maul must move about 3 metres plus. That's more or less. What you're looking for is for the last feet of that maul to be past where that line, the line of touch, the mark of touch, sorry, where that lineout was. And sorry, this one's not going to play in full screen. Not much point in me showing it either because you won't be able to see it clearly. You can watch it on the video. Sorry. Cool. Okay, so that was all on space. Any questions or comments just around our space and offsides?
Yeah, just a question. Can you hear me, Cam?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, g'day. Hey, just a question with regards to the players not advancing until the ball has been won or cleared by the halfback. Is that really saying until the halfback has basically lifted the ball from the ground? So once he doesn't necessarily have to clear it, it's just once he's lifted it off the ground. Is that right?
Yeah. So the way I used to trigger myself in a game is that once it's clear of feet. So it's a lifting off the ground. That ball may be off the ground, but it could still be in that scrum or in that ruck or in that breakdown. So once they're off the ground, and then once he's got it past those legs, which he can't, he really shouldn't be holding it in there anyway. The referee should be telling him to use it, and I'll actually talk about that in our next one. So that's a good point. But yeah, once he's got it readily available, once he gets it clear of legs, then that's where I would draw that line, as that ball being out once it's out in the open.
Okay, so the trigger is actually not once the ball is lifted from the ground, it's once it's cleared from the legs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else on that one at all, guys? Offside in space?
Can you hear me, Ken?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Yeah, JD here. Just a query on the players not in the line out, but advancing for a long throw over the top.
Yep.
If they don't receive that ball, they're liable for a penalty back.
If the players don't receive the ball?
If they come forward anticipating a long throw.
Yep.
Well, if we're saying that we've got to sanction the other players in front of the kick-off side, surely to God they don't have to go back. Surely to God we sanction that as well and take the penalty back up 10 metres, 15 metres in.
Yeah, so I'm just making sure I follow you here. So we are talking about those. Yeah, so if there was to be, or they're come up anticipating a long throw, it doesn't happen. Yeah, they do have to. They actually, by law, they have to retreat. Now, usually, what would happen is that both sides would then come up. So that's a management thing. However, I know it sounds pretty hard and pretty tough, but the way I'm looking at this myself is that it's usually the attacking players that would instigate that, and then the defending teams would respond. So if they're coming up and that ball doesn't go past the 15s middle line, and then they don't retreat, I'd actually penalise the attacking team, because they're the ones that came up first. They're the ones that set the whole thing into motion. They didn't retreat, and they're offside. Yeah. I know it sounds pretty tough, but that's kind of what we're getting at, because we're actually getting a lot less space in the game because of what's happening.
Yep, I just wanted you to clarify that part.
Yep, no, it's a good question. It's good. Good scenario you raised there as well.
Okay.
Yep. Cool. Excellent, guys. Okay, again, if there are any more on that offside space, just make a note of those or pop them in the chat, and then we can visit them at the end as well. Okay. This is actually the third one. So this is around keeping the game positive and promoting positive play through the law. So what you might have seen creeping in over the last couple of years are these things called caterpillar rucks. They are the bane of my existence and a lot of referees. So this is when so we have a law that can prevent this. We have a few laws that can prevent this, but not many people like to choose to enact them. However, the most simple one is the ball being used. So it's within the referee's right to say once that ball is available, it can be played, then to use it. So basically, if a team is setting up lots of players one behind the other, and then the halfback is moving the ball down and down and down between their legs, they're clearly in a position to be able to play that ball. Okay, so it's at that point that ball's available to be used. The referee calls use it. They must play that ball within 5 seconds. If they don't, scrum. The other team gets the ball. Okay, so this has already started cutting down a lot of the caterpillar rucks in Super Rugby this year. You're hearing a lot more use it calls from referees. You can call it early. Don't wait for them to clearly be mucking around with it. Ball's available, use it. Then they've got their 5 seconds to then get it out. Okay. All right. We also then see a lot less box kicks in the game, which some referees aren't a big fan of either. Sorry, that's not playing. What's going on there? So setups here. Ball's now available, clearly available. Still available, still available, still available, still available. These guys are just like around now. Then we got to use it. And so you said use it there. You guys see that? 5, that's 5 seconds. Yep. And you made slide scrum. Cool. So again, these are the kind of things that if we get these early, particularly early in the season, they'll disappear, and they always do. So that's definitely an early in the game, early in the season. Use it. Not using it, okay, scrum. So particularly team coaches know that that is not something that that's something we're trying to get rid of out of the game, and it's because it is against the law. Now this next one is I just want to put some context around this next game priority. No timeout for a team chat. This probably is really focused at high level games or at probably more premier level games. This one will be obviously use discretion with this one, particularly referees. It's around foul play warning, so not giving the timeout for the team captain to go back and have a chat. We've found usually, particularly at high level rugby, that captain can give their chat or make their point known either at the next stoppage, or they can quickly yell at their players, and all their players know what they're talking about anyway. What is happening is some teams are using it as a strategic opportunity to stop the game. So no time delay there. However, please put that in context for the grade that you are refereeing or the grade that you are within, because I would not expect this, particularly in juniors, more participation type grades to come into effect. We effectively want the message to get through to the players. So please put that in the context for the grade that you referee. And I would actually more encourage that players at lower grades do actually have the opportunity to get the message to their players. Any questions just around that priority there, guys? Or those two priorities? No. Cool. Again, if there's any more, we can revisit them later. Okay. All right. This is just around, I guess, the pace of our game and not time wasting within that as well. So this is around set piece setup. Okay. Again, scrums to be set up within 30 seconds. Again, this is a one that we should be mindful of and apply it to the grade that we are within. So the higher the grade, the more competitive the grade, then the closer that we should adhere to these priorities here. So scrums looking to be set up within 30 seconds, and if it's unsettled or if we haven't got good stability there at the scrum, it could be from a team wasting time, referees to blow time off so that we don't have playing time wasted. So then get settled again, then get reset, then set up, and then time can go back on. Okay, so referees, particularly higher grades, to manage that using time off as well if we do get unsettled or unstable scrums during the setup. Okay. And in terms of tidiness, we're looking for clear triggers at each of our calls. Okay, so when we're at crouch, we're looking for a clear gap between the front rows. Okay, so they're not leaning on each other; they are holding completely their own weight. A nice clear gap. They might have their shoulder, their head really close to that shoulder, but they're not leaning on the opposition. Okay, but for me, touching is fine, not leaning. But if they're just touching that head on that shoulder, they will still have a nice clear zigzag gap between those two front rows. Balance on each call. So that's when you go through your bind and your set, that you're getting balance. Balance looks like everyone is balanced. There's no sideways movement. There's no up and down. There's no someone sort of fidgeting around. You are getting a nice balance for what that call entails. And then once we do have our set, we've got those straight push. That's from everyone. And legal binds. I don't want to get drawn too much into a big scrum clinic or debate here tonight, but referees, what we are looking for, if we can just make sure that we're maybe keeping those 4 focus areas. So your balance, your gap, straight pushing and legal binds, then that'll really help. Those 4 right there will solve the vast majority scrum problems, because any others would become quite apparent. Okay. So again, our triggers as referees, we're looking to promote positive behaviour. Okay, so get those scrums set up early, and insist tidy scrums, particularly in the game. Get those scrums set up right and start how you mean to carry on. Okay. Lineouts much the same. So form without delay. Okay. Teams come in like it's a personal management style of mine that I don't allow teams to stop their line out set up about 5-10 meters back and then come in at the last second. I don't mind them walking in, that's all good, but that's a personal one for me. What we are looking for is that whenever the teams do come in to form that line out, is that there is a gap, it is maintained from both sides as well, and that it's nice and tidy. We don't want teams coming in at the last second, then throwing the ball, there being no gap in and just a big mess in the middle. That's what we're trying to avoid. Okay, so not straight throws, even if the opposition doesn't contest for those, we are still adjudicating on those. Again, the trigger for not straight throws is outside, is past the outside shoulder. Okay, so if that throw is coming in anywhere sort of over the head or through the middle, then it's a straight throw. Our trigger is once it gets to the outside shoulder. And again, line out mauls, making sure that these are set up legally. Okay, so defenders should have the opportunity to tackle or to make contact with the player who has possession of the ball. Okay, so they're coming down, and then the two lifters are going in front of them, the person who's received that ball, and they're setting up in front of that ball carrier. That's obstruction. They can't set up in front of them. Okay, so making sure that any mauls are set up legally where the defenders have an opportunity to carry that, to first make contact on that ball carrier. They can then transfer the ball after that once it's set up. Okay, just around the setup of those lineouts as well. Like if a team does come in late and then they throw pretty soon after that, referees don't blow numbers on those. Don't ping the opposition for numbers. There's no way that the non-throwing team will have a chance to adjust numbers if the throwing team comes in late. So what that will do is that will hopefully trigger our throwing teams to get there earlier and set up better. And that's what we're looking for there. Before we jump to the last one, any questions around our set piece setup?
You there, Cam?
Yeah, yes. We've got a couple of questions, so maybe we'll just get one person in first.
Stu Booton. Yep. You mentioned the throw in can be over the top of the head.
Yeah.
Is that allowing the thrower to throw straight over the head of all his players? Isn't that getting a wee bit away from a contest?
If he's managing to keep a dead straight throw over the top of all the heads of his players, he'd be doing pretty well. Chances are that if he's actually set up in the middle properly, if you've got your line out set up properly with the gap set up properly, if it's over the head of one of those players, chances are if that keeps on going, then it's going to be not straight, right? So if it gets to the guy who's catching it and he catches it sort of on that inside shoulder or just above his head, for me that's my trigger. Like that's still straight throw. It's once it gets towards the outside shoulder and towards the outside of the head, that for me that's my trigger, is to be not straight throw. Again, I think if we're looking for every throw to be 100% dead down the market touch, I think we might be asking a bit too much. But yeah, look for the inside shoulder, and then make your allowances from there, depending on, I guess, how windy the game is, your level, and what you are refereeing.
Yeah, I just wonder whether I need to make an adjustment. I normally use the inside ears if it's in between the opposition and the throwing team's ears, somewhere in that area. But when you mentioned getting over their head, I thought, I better just check on that.
Yeah, it's not a law again. It's where do we draw our line and what do we apply in the game? I guess the most important thing is we're consistent, right?
Consistency.
So draw your line. Where's your line for your contest, and then go from there.
Thanks.
Good clarification, Boots. There was another one there.
Yeah, it was just me, Cam, Pete.
Hey, Pete.
I think players or players and referees have just got to remember, if somebody jumps to the centre of the lineup, they can still catch a ball on their outside shoulder, and it's still a legit throw. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Yeah. So probably to clarify what I was saying a bit more, just based on what you said there, Pete, was that from their starting position, make your set the standards there for that throw in. Yeah. Cool. Good point. All right. Just on to our last one, guys, which is pretty straightforward, but it always needs to be brought to light, and we will continue to bring it to light forever. That's player behaviour towards referees. So one thing that is creeping in a lot more, and particularly at a high performance level, you see it a lot more, and I'm yet to see them really crack down on it. So I'm still waiting for that day, but I live in hope. Is players yelling and waving their arms at the referee, appealing, protesting. Again, swearing in appropriate language is definitely unacceptable. That's an absolute no. They can't do that, and that's I'm sure that for a lot of referees, that's where they would draw the line anyway. Again, we don't check decisions in our in our grades, in our community grades. We might be able to check them with an assistant referee, but again, we certainly don't have the power of the TMO. But certainly, players that are on your case or on a referee's case, protesting and appealing for decisions, is actually covered under foul play. So the players can't do anything to make sure that for the referee to think that there's been an infringement. Okay, so they're trying to get it out of the game, and again, as a referee, draw your line, set your standards hard and early. For players and coaches of players as well, it's about how you set up your captains as well, as to their discussions with referees, picking the right moments, which we'll talk about in a second as well. I think it's got a little video here, which shows it quite nicely. Okay, so we have something's happened. They'll just there was some swearing. What you wouldn't have heard, there was swearing as well at the referee, which he just let go. And what you can't hear as well in this one is that he was just saying, in the side, far out. I think it was that, or something similar, or that you fill in the gaps. Again, that kind of stuff isn't tolerated either. You guys don't have audio, so I'll just get that. Thanks. Last year. Sorry, Chiefs fan. Again, referees, I guess the key around this is set your standards. Don't allow it. Engage the captain to really build that connection with the captain and make sure that captains are speaking at the right time. And yeah, that's just about that last bit there too. So captain speaking to the referees, choosing the right time and place. Add a penalty straight away, not the right time or place. Stoppage and play on the way to lineouts, injury, water, scrum. We've got other times and places for captains to speak, but add a penalty straight away is not the right time or place, unless the referee actually wants to go and speak to the captain at that time. And again, sideline staff and coaches, the same obligations, same rules apply over there as well. We're not constantly barracking from the sidelines in terms of at the officials, certainly not at the assistant referees, which we unfortunately did have a few issues with last year in Bay of Plenty. So we're looking to stamp down on that as well. assistant referees will not listen to what you're saying and will carry on their duties. They've got things to watch and they have specific roles as well. Okay. Any questions around that last focus area? Hopefully pretty straightforward. All right. Okay, so just on that, did we have any other questions just before I'll just quickly share point you towards the World Rugby Laws website? So from any of the law clarifications, from any of the priorities tonight?
Cam, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Grant here. How are you?
Good.
Hey, that Aaron Cruden clip where they were playing the Hurricanes there, with Brendan when he kept on talking back to Brendan Pickerel. What was the outcome of that? Did he get a yellow card or?
No, he didn't get a yellow card. I'm not too sure if they cited that either.
Oh, okay.
What we're looking to do on community on field is nip that in the bud pretty quickly, pretty early, and penalise those.
Okay, thank you, Cam.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for joining, guys. Now there was one other attachment, and if you picked up the email, some of you may have joined through a link on Facebook. Others of you may have picked up an email which had these attachments in there. Then you may have also picked up an attachment which pointed towards the World Rugby website, and in particular, there was a law application guideline, which was released last week, just around head contact to the head. So I'll just quickly show that. Now we do actually have a clarification meeting with New Zealand Rugby this week, so I will share more information after that meeting. So I won't go in massive depth to it right now. However, I will just point your eyes towards the World Rugby website. If you haven't been on for a while, if you've never been on, then I highly recommend it. They've rebuilt the website. They've actually built it in a new area, so it's actually called world.rugby now. It's no longer worldragby.com or whatever it was before. So a completely revamped, redesigned website. There is also an app as well, both on Android and on Apple, which has now been updated as well and includes all of the law application guidelines as well. So the law application guidelines, for those of you who do not know, are, I guess, all the little extra bits about how we interpret the law and how we apply the law, how the law is applied. What you will see on here, so it always starts with the most recent one when you go into law application guidelines. This one has got the head contact process. They've tried to break it down as simple as humanly possible. So starting with, has head contact occurred? No, play on. Yes. Okay, next one. Was there foul play? No, right, play on. Yes, okay, well, someone's at fault here and now we've got to do something about it. Okay, so breaking it down to a basic degree of danger. Was it pretty low danger? Okay, yep, sure. This is penalty there. Medium danger. Okay, cool. Yellow card. Or the high danger is red card. And did something happen for it to bring it down to anything? Yes or no, and then we go from there. So again, we're not going to go in detail with it right now because we are waiting just a bit further clarification from the New Zealand Rugby perspective. So referees, we will go into this a bit more ahead of the season and so that you know what you're going on there. But what I do recommend though is go to the World Rugby website and familiarise with yourself with this stuff. It has got clips. It has got explanations, such as friendly fire, like clashing of heads. Not every bit of head contact is foul play. Some of it is accidental. Some of it there was no fault. Look at why they come to certain things, the processes, everything like that, how it is applied, what degree of danger actually means. Again, there is massive content and massive amount of work that goes into these to try and make things as simple and easy to apply as possible, because there is a law and then there's how we apply the law. Okay, you'll also see things like the enforcement of current law where it says referring at the breakdown, which is pretty much what we've just covered with our priorities, and a whole lot of other different priority application guidelines which go way back as well. So just be careful about out-of-date ones way back as well. But yeah, that is a great website to have a bit of a go around. For anyone that is keen, it always has a practice law exam on there as well, which is really great for just practicing your law knowledge. You can create a free account on there and then just practice the law exam, and which is great as well for anyone involved in the game. More law knowledge, the better. So yeah, I'll just share my screen. Cool. Did anyone have any questions around just maybe anything else that's come out in terms of law lately, or anything that they wanted to raise, just from a law perspective, whether it be coaches, referees, anyone that's on this call? No? Awesome. Well, guys, we're just a couple minutes over 8. Sorry about that. I did say by 8, so I was pretty close to it. I'll blame it on that very first bit where I started speaking on mute, so I'll go with that. But thank you all for joining me tonight. Again, I will share this video clip recording as well. If you haven't got those access to the PowerPoint, then just drop me an email, cam@boprugby.co.nz. I can just send you the link back to you as well, so you can actually watch those video clips from everything that we saw tonight. You might want to watch a few more of them in detail just to build your own really good understanding and your own really good clear picture of what you're looking at in front of you, particularly around the breakdown stuff. Again, those arriving players are probably where most of the action happens, and where things start to get a bit messier. So if a referee or referee coach is really clear on their pictures and what they're looking at in front of them, then it becomes a whole lot easier to go through your processes and go through your steps. Team coaches, again, you can start rolling this into your training tomorrow night. How are we going to work within these law applications? We had a similar conversation last year with some of the premier teams, engaged them in the law applications, and there wasn't great uptake on those. However, the teams that did buy into them and want to learn more about the law typically went on to do better within the season. So we don't make a secret about these things. We don't want to make it a secret about these things. We'd rather have everyone upskilled and educated as much as possible. And I guess the only way to do that is through sharing this kind of information. So put everyone you can onto it, share it far and wide, share it with people in your club, share it to lower, higher grade teams, whatever. The sooner we can, I guess the earlier as well that we can instill with some players, the better as well. So it's good. Thank you all for joining. Unless there's anything else, I'll leave you all to your Monday night and have a good one. Thanks.